Good evening, good people. Thank you so much for being on tonight's mass call. I am honored every time you continue over and over and over again to come together across our differences, to make meaning of the moment, to hear from leaders that we can trust, and to get calls to action that we can take to stop the harm that's happening to everyday people. I want to welcome you. If this is your first time joining one of our mass calls, I want to give you a special welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself, say where you're calling in from in the chat. And for folks who are watching the recording after this live stream, I want to thank you for tuning in. I don't take it for granted the time that you're taking out of your incredibly busy and chaotic schedules to be in community with us. So thank you if you're a returning viewer, if you're a brand new viewer, if you're watching this later, we are glad that you are here. My name is Ashley Woodard Henderson. I'm going to be your MC for the evening. And while we're giving folks a second to tune in, to get their water and their snacks, settle in, maybe this could be a time where you text your friends, your loved ones, and tell them that it's an SOS. We need everybody on this mass call. This is an opportunity for you to post out on social media, tell folks that you are in the place to be. I want to also remind you that this is a public facing call. And where two or three are gathered, there might be a troll. I want to remind you that we can disagree with one another, but we will respect each other in this sacred space that we're creating together. So I'm going to remind you to be kind to each other today, to give grace to each other today, to meet each other where we're at today. Because I imagine you, like me, are coming with a whole lot of feelings. You might be exhausted, you might be pissed off, you might be grieving this end of democracy as some people have known it. And there is space enough in this sacred space that we're creating together for all of those feelings, while also being optimistic, hopeful, and determined to build a better place for all of us. Y'all, we've got folks coming into the call tonight. We see you joining. We see you introducing yourselves. Again, I want to remind you to text your friends, hit the group chats, send it to the listservs, an invitation to join us. Make sure you're spreading the good word. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the impact that communities like mine are already seeing as a result of this disastrous Calais decision by the Supreme Court to gut the Voting Rights Act. We're going to be joined by leaders at the forefront of protecting and defending our freedom to vote. Very first up, I have the beloved Barbara Ironwine coming to talk to us from the Transformative Justice Coalition. Barbara, I will toss it to you first.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for everyone who's here tonight. Thank you for bringing your best attention, your best grace, your best commitment in this hour. I am Attorney Barbara Arnwine, the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition and a good troublemaker. You know, that's what we're here for, to make some good trouble. As we discussed, with this recent Calais ruling, the Supreme Court of the United States essentially authorized partisan gerrymandering to override Black voters' right to meaningful representation, erasing decades of progress in one single ruling. Never forget, people fought, they bled, and they died for our voting rights protections. But this court has dismissed all of those sacrifices with the stroke of a pen. And we're already seeing the impact. We're witnessing a Jim Crow era effort from state legislatures throughout the South, forcing through racially gerrymandered congressional maps to silence Black and Brown communities in order to keep themselves in power and act with impunity, calling Black men boys in these capitals. Just outrageous. As activists, we share a long tradition of speaking out to demand that the United States Supreme Court issue opinions that affirm the Constitution's broad dictates for racial equality. The Constitution nowhere says partisanship is protected, is a protected right. As activists, we have to be there. So when the court fails in its duty as is true of this wrongful Calais decision. We have turned to our people power of peaceful, nonpartisan public education, organizing, and strong mobilization. And lawyers, we call on you. Don't forget, you have a role here. So join us May 27th for a national call on how we also show up to make good trouble on this activation. While they are trying, the Supreme Court, to strip away our voice, we still do have the right to vote. Don't ever forget that. And we need to continue to vote and vote like we never voted before and make our voices heard. That's why we're carrying the torch for the long movement, not the short term, the long term movement for civil rights this weekend and beyond. We're here today to invite you to join us this weekend with the All Roads Lead to the South National Day of Action. You're going to hear more about that in a few minutes. And for you to help us build, that's right, build to the Good Trouble Lives On weekend of action on July 17th through the 19th, something we've never done before as a movement in this era. And continuing beyond until we truly have an inclusive, representative, non-sexist, just, multiracial democracy where all our voices can be heard. Let's make good trouble, everyone. Back to you, Ashley.
Barbara, we love you. TJC family, love you. Thank you for inviting us into action, giving us something meaningful we can do with all of this energy, all this desire to build a better future. We are grateful for you. Y'all make sure you go to goodtroubleliveson.org. We're going to make sure to be dropping these links in the chat. You should be signing up to host one of these events for that weekend of action. We want to make sure you get it done. We're going to keep on pushing because we've got a lot of great speakers on the dais tonight. The next person is my brother in the movement. You all know him. I've already seen y'all shouting out other fam in the Black Voters Matter tribe. Next up is my comrade, Cliff Albright. Y'all show some love to Cliff in the chat. Cliff, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I get to spend time with Ash and with Barbara Armstrong. What? It's a good day, y'all. It's a good day to be a freedom fighter. Listen, y'all, we all know what's been going on in the South. We know what happened with the Calais decision. We expected them. We expected the Confederate States to do Confederate state type things, and that's exactly what we've seen happening. Ashley's home state of Tennessee has officially become the first state to not only start their session, but to actually pass new gerrymandered Jim Crow maps. We need to be clear and call it what it is. These are Jim Crow maps. But here's the deal. I was there in Tennessee. In fact, Ashley and I were standing next to each other doing chants for a big part of the rally. And when I tell you, it was so loud in there. We had to put earplugs in, y'all. It was so loud in there, they couldn't hear what was going on inside the chambers because we were so loud outside the chambers. And all of that was the result of organizing. Shout out to all of the organizations. Civic Tennessee is the table, Equity Alliance, Turk, so many. I don't even want to start naming them because it's a strong ecosystem that is built on relationships. And I don't care what anybody says. In the country, and especially in the South, relationships are infrastructure. And they demonstrated that in Tennessee because you could not respond as quickly as those groups did if you're not already in relationship. And so you're going to hear tonight about from some of the other states, because we know it didn't just stop in Tennessee. There's sessions going on right now or being planned in states like South Carolina, still going on in Louisiana, where our friends at the Power Coalition and others showed out the other night, kept them up till 4:30, trying to do the shenanigans that those folks. But you'll hear more about that from our friends from the ACLU. You'll hear more about some of the other states where sessions going. In Georgia, just announced that Georgia will now be doing a special session. And although it's not to impact the 2026 maps, we don't need to give any cookie points to the governor of Georgia, because although they're doing it a little bit later than the rest of these states, what are they doing? They're doing everything that has a district. It's not just one or two congressional districts that they're going after. They said we're going to redo state legislative maps. They said we're going to redo any state office that has districts. And so all of these states are jumping in. It's not a state by state attack, and we need to be clear about that. Although it gives that appearance because these are things happening in state legislatures, and we need to support all of these state-based groups that are talking, that are going to be talking on this call. But we need to be clear. This is a national attack. This is a Project 2025 attack. This is a White House attack, because to be clear, these maps that they're voting on, they don't vote on them until they've talked to the White House. And in fact, in some cases, it's the White House that's sending them the maps to vote on. This is a national attack, and it requires a national response. And that's why we put out the call the same way after Bloody Sunday and that violence, that a call was put out for folks to come to Selma. We are now putting out the call after the violence of Calais, after the violence that we're seeing in these states. We're putting out the call for people to come back to the South, come back to Montgomery with the Selma to Montgomery March, come back to the South, because at the end of the day, all roads lead through to the South. Right. And so we want folks to come to Montgomery, get on buses, organize your base, organize your list, organize your members, come on to Montgomery, especially if you're anywhere near the South. Come on down. But even we got buses coming from Ohio, y'all. We got buses coming from all over. So come to Montgomery. But guess what? If you can't make it, there's still something for you to do, because you can organize an event right where you are. You can organize a set, just like with No Kings, you can organize satellite events. They can be rallies. They can be dinners for democracy, right? Like our good friends, Democracy Forward do. They can be press conferences. They can be a lot of things, but it can't be anything until you go to the website, allroadsleadtothe-south.com. I think somebody's probably going to put it in the chat. Click on the links. If you need a ride from some states, there's some states where we're providing buses. You just got to go there, click on the link that says hop on the bus, and then we can get connected with you. If you're organizing a bus, then you can go on and click that link to say, I'm bringing a bus. Or if you just want to sign up, or if you just want to do your own satellite event. But go to the website, get connected. We'll send you all the resources that we have, because all of us have to be involved in this movement. And the last thing I'll say is, and it doesn't stop on Saturday. This is part of an ongoing call to action that's going to be taking place. Freedom Summer, Freedom Fall, call it what you want, but it's going to be a series of activations that all of you are involved in. And I'm so excited to be in this movement with everybody that's on this call. Thank y'all so much.
Cliff, we love you. I will see you tomorrow. I need y'all hear my voice. It's because I was screaming in that Capitol with Cliff all week last week. I need y'all to go to allroadsleadtothe-south.com, and let me be so clear. For my homies that are like, but what's the demand? What are we doing? Like, we're going to go to Alabama. We're going to march across the bridge. What's next? What's next? You already heard Cliff. We don't do nothing that don't have what's next, my friends. And if you think I'm about to be there and I give you a call to action when we there, you have definitely misremembered who I am on these mass calls. So I need you to come. If you want to hear what I think we should be doing next, I need you to be in Montgomery, because we're going to talk a little bit about it there. I need you to go to allroadsleadtothe-south.com. You can find a ride. You can put your event on the map if you're going to do a satellite action. We are so, so excited to see folks in the streets on Saturday. And just a reminder, as goes the South, so goes the nation is a fact. It's a fundamental fact, not an opinion. And I think that we are living that right now. Thank you, Black Voters Matter, and all the incredible organizations. I know State of the People's involved. I know the Legal Defense Fund's involved, and all the other incredible organizations that are making All Roads Lead to the South happen. Again, go to allroadsleadtothe-south.com to get more information tonight. And when you've done it, I want you to tell me you checked out the website on the chat. I want you to tell me if you're going to Montgomery, if we'll see you there. I want you to tell me if you're going to an action near you. Y'all, next, we're going to hear from another few states who have been directly impacted by the foolishness of Calais, the foolishness of redistricting. I have the esteemed privilege to bring up Ryan Wagner from Alabama Values, and Alana Autumns, from the executive director from the American Civil Liberties Union of Louisiana. Y'all are going to hear from them about what's happening on the ground, these leaders that you can trust, and a little bit about what people are doing to fight for justice in spite of these trying times. Ryan, Alana, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you all for having me. I'm Ryan Wagner. I am the Policy, Narrative, and Community Partnerships Director at Alabama Values. And I want to ground us for a bit in this moment around what's happening in Alabama, because this is bigger than lines on a map. This is about power. This is about representation. And this is about whether Black communities and communities of color will have meaningful voice in our democracy. What is happening in Alabama cannot be separated from this country's long history of white supremacy, anti-Blackness, you name it. During Jim Crow, Alabama used violence, poll taxes, literacy tests, white primaries, and the 1901 Constitution to disenfranchise Black voters and nearly eliminate Black office holding for decades. As a direct response to the brief but significant and audacity of Black people to want political representation and the gains we made during Reconstruction. These attacks on fair representation are not random. They're part of a larger pattern of suppressing Black political power. Whenever Black communities begin to make gains politically, socially, or economically, there's usually some sort of backlash. And so this is not new. We are watching attempts to repackage voter suppression in a race-neutral framework, if you will, while producing the same anti-Black outcomes we have seen throughout American history. This is not new. This is what's old is new, and what's new is old again. The goal has always been the same: maintain political power by limiting the influence, representation, and collective power of Black communities. John Roberts' race-neutral colorblind framework is harmful because it treats race as if it doesn't shape our laws and our power and our infrastructure, which makes it harder to identify discrimination and harder to justify the remedies to fix it. Right now, Alabama lawmakers are trying to force through congressional maps that once again silence Black voters and voters of color and weaken Black political power. This is happening despite years of organizing, litigation, and clear evidence that Black Alabamians remain underrepresented in the political process. We have to remember that Alabama has already been at the center of one of the most important voting rights battles in modern history through Allen v. Milligan. In that case, the Supreme Court upheld Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and affirmed that Alabama's maps likely violated federal law by diluting Black voting strength. That decision mattered because it reaffirmed that race cannot be ignored in a state with a long documented history of racial discrimination and terror, especially following the Reconstruction era. Where national representation, 16 African Americans served in Congress, including the first senators and representatives. Hiram Reeves, first Black senator, 1870. Blanche K. Bruce, first to serve a full term. Local Black power, over 600 Black individuals served in Southern state legislatures, and hundreds more held roles as sheriffs, mayors, and magistrates. Following the Compromise of 1877, the removal of federal troops, violent voter intimidation by white supremacists, and what we know now to be called Jim Crow laws eradicated those gains in Black political power in the South. But what we're witnessing now is an ongoing effort to work around the spirit of that ruling by neutralizing it. Instead of fully embracing fair representation, and state leadership continues to try and manipulate district lines in ways that preserve political power for a few while minimizing voices of Black communities and other communities of color. Alabama's leadership is attempting to bypass recent rulings by manipulating those district lines to preserve its powers and marginalize communities of color. We passed a whole Amendment 4 to stop this. But I guess it's do as I say and not as I do in the state of Alabama. Following the Calais decision, the legislature passed HB1 and SB1, sponsored by individuals who believe that racism is over. These bills established a winner-take-all special primaries for affected districts if current injunctions are lifted. Though I want to note The May 19, 2026 primaries remain unaffected and are still happening. I want to make that clear. Just as a reminder, Amendment 4 in Alabama requires that any legislation changing the conduct of a general election be enacted at least 6 months prior to the election to prevent mid-year redistricting and guess what? Election chaos. It prohibits changing election laws within 6 months of a general election. Well, what do we have here? They're going against the very rules and regulations they passed in 2022. This legislative maneuvering is reminiscent of the state's previous strategy to use the Purcell principle, an election law doctrine that discourages, mind you, changing the rules close to the election as a shield for gerrymandering. Clearly, they don't follow their own rules. This has effectively forced Black voters to cast ballots under a map that courts later deemed unlawful. Election protection and voter confusion. The practical impact is widespread instability. May 12th of 2026, earlier this week, Kay Ivey called for a special primary on August 11th of 2026 for the 1st, 2nd, 6th, and 7th congressional districts. With obviously that won't impact May 19th primaries, but again, this will impact districts like those of Shamari Figures. This was a targeted attack on Black opportunity districts in the state, attacking our representation. And it also caused confusion, if I'm being perfectly honest, around what elections were happening when. Alabama Forward and our state election protection groups across Alabama have been working aggressively to combat misinformation and voter confusion. Since May 4th alone, Alabama's Fight for Fair Maps coordinated voter outreach efforts that included more than 40,740 text messages, over 5,025 phone calls. We've been working to voters across the state. More than 20 organizations have been engaged in phone banking efforts. 16 groups are participating in canvassing operations. 19 groups are supporting rapid response email campaigns, and 22 organizations are prepared and ready to go to support statewide text banking operations as needed. So we've been working. And from a communication standpoint and organizing perspective, Alabamians are not sitting quietly through this moment. In response, Alabama Values, the Solve Network, we launched the Fight for Fair Maps working group, toolkit, and resource hub with messaging guidance, public education resources, digital assets, state-specific updates to help communities make sense of this moment and take action. We encourage folks to visit the hub at www.fightforfairmapscontinues.org. Use the resources and share them with your communities. And ahead of national groups arriving in Alabama this weekend, we wanted to emphasize that local Black-led orgs and Alabama's civic infrastructure have been carrying this work long before national attention, okay? And arrived and will continue to after they leave. This is not a parachute moment. This is generational organizing rooted in resistance to white supremacy and anti-Black voter suppression. This is why Alabama Forward and Alabama Values released a joint open letter calling for deeper reflection and investment long-term, not just at the mercy of an election cycle, right? In Southern infrastructure, local leadership, and year-round movement building. You can read and share that at www.alvalues.org/standwithal. Why this matters beyond Alabama, I think it's important to say this clearly. This fight is not just about Alabama. Alabama is often the testing ground. The South in general is the testing ground for much of what we see nationally, particularly with Project 2025. What happens here has implications for voting rights happening across the South and across the country. And as you said, so goes the South, so goes the rest of the nation. But I might add, the South has something to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Alana, we'll toss it to you next.
Hey, okay. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I feel so energized being with you tonight. And I love that history lesson that Ryan just gave us. She really set up the frame. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk right through that frame and let you know where I was and what I was doing on the morning of April 29th when this cowardly court issued this disgraceful opinion. I was in my kitchen. I was getting my daughter's lunch ready and prepared, and my phone started ringing. It rang once, and then it rang again, and then it rang again. And I realized on that morning, my heart sank because I thought about what I was doing on the morning of October 15th, 2025, which is my mother's 75th birthday. I was in the halls of the United States Supreme Court listening to the cowardly and to the discriminatory opinions of folks that look like you and me, but as we know, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I was listening to cowardly white men talk about how they feel about discrimination being something of the past, about the way that we live in a post-racial society. I was listening to people say that they think that we no longer need Section 2 and the seatbelt that it provided because we're doing just fine. And it's very hard to find evidence of discrimination, and we should all be celebrating. As a matter of fact, that's what this opinion actually said. We should be celebrating. But what I can tell you is that in the state of Louisiana, we're not celebrating. As a matter of fact, we are organizing. And the reason why we're organizing is because Calais unleashed a wave of unconstitutional, immoral, nefarious, and terrible acts which have sought to eliminate Black power and Black political participation in the city of New Orleans, in the state of Louisiana, and all across this nation. See, we had a governor who had the Project 2025 playbook before Trump rolled it out to the nation. And that governor has been attempting to eliminate and erase Black leadership in our state for over 2.5 years now. And that attack has looked like eliminating Black judges in the city of New Orleans, because we have more Black judges in our state than almost any other place in the country. And it's because of the Voting Rights Act. It's because of majority minority districts. I sat in a room this morning with 200 years of political experience, Black political leadership, 4 elected leaders, the former Chief Justice of our Louisiana Supreme Court, who spent 26 years on the Louisiana Supreme Court bench and served her last 10 as Chief Justice. Our former senators, and also Judge Dennis Bagneris, former city councilman John Singleton, and others who talked about the fact that their only way to break out of Jim Crow in the South in Louisiana, because they graduated from segregated schools, they drank from colored water fountains. The only way for them to break out of that and to actually be able to participate politically was through the Voting Rights Act and through the creation of majority minority districts. Each one of those people ran in majority minority districts. So when this court tells us that they don't need a remedy, and that the remedy of creating majority districts where Black people have the opportunity to vote for people who look like them, who have their interests at heart, who are going to the state houses and going to the courts and going to Congress to articulate what the needs of Black people are in the state of Louisiana, that is very real. That is a very real, very serious contention. And so I'm going to tell you what those 200 years of Black political experience told me this morning. They told me that organizing is the most important thing we can do. Why? Because we know we don't have the courts, the federal courts, the way that they once did. We know that the Supreme Court is operating like the mafia. That's what my former boss, Chief Justice Johnson, said. When you have a court that acts like the mafia and you have a president that's on the take, you can't trust the government. But you know that the power of the people are always greater than the people in power. So organizing is important, and organizing across our intergenerational groups. We have got to stop talking to each other and not having our children at these tables. Our children have to be with us when we do this work. If I'm blessed enough to join you in Montgomery this weekend, it will be with my daughter. And she will be there with me because it is important for our children. We've got to plant these seeds because this is a long arc project. The right was organizing for 100 years to be able to stand in the moment they're in. And we're living in their manifestation, but we have the chance to create a manifestation of our own, and it has to be birthed in our children. And it has to come as soon as possible. And that is the time that we are living in right now. It also has to look at, we've got to get incredibly creative. And I want to talk about 2 Black women in the state of Louisiana who are not a part of the political establishment at all. And their imagination and their creativity, they put forth 2 recall initiatives. And I'm going to call this out right now. The ACLU is a wonderful organization. We do beautiful work. We're litigating almost all the cases on Section 2. But we're not able to win on those cases right now because I talked about the mafia and how these courts are operating. These 2 Black women created petitions to remove Liz Muriel, our Attorney General, and to remove Governor Landry, and have mobilized hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Louisiana who previously felt like they didn't have a voice. So the answers are not only going to come from grass tops organizations, they're not going to come only from people who have fancy titles, they're not going to come from people who have degrees like me, or people who have sat in beautiful structures with marble and glass. And we've got to break down these barriers. And we got to be working intergenerationally, inter-neighborhood, from people who are taught and schooled in the streets to people who are schooled in the books, and how we actually work together on that. And I want to say how proud I am of those Black women and how we have to learn from them, because what we did in order to get here is not what's going to bring us through. The people who broke the system are not going to be the ones who have the answers. And this group, in terms of talking about mobilizing and what it takes, we're going to have to be spiritual. We're going to have to be metaphysical. We're going to have to be grounded. We're going to have to be street. We're going to have to be court. We're going to have to be Congress. We're going to have to be all of those things all together. And we're going to have to not be deterred. Because what Maya Angelou said is what I tell myself every single day. And it's not a joke, and it's not a cliche, and it's not a game. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. In fact, it might be necessary for us to encounter defeats, for us to know who we are, how we can make it through, and how we can come out on the other side. But for this governor trying to cancel an election and throw out thousands of votes, but for Calais striking down the crown jewel of the Voting Rights Act, we would not have had 2 Black women create a recall petition to potentially eliminate the bad actors that are doing this kind of foolishness in our government. And it may succeed, and I believe that it will. And so that is the kind of grassroots, that is the kind of ingenuity that we have to encourage and support and grow in our states. And we can't turn our backs on the power that we have inside of us. And when I say spiritual, our leadership comes from our lineage. I'll say it again. Our leadership comes from our lineage. When we look back and when we look inside, we have the answers that we need. We just have to be faithful to ourselves and to one another in this process as we're going through it. Thank you so much.
All right, my friends, show some love to Ryan and Elena. You heard it. The South's got something to say, and when our elders and ancestors said by any means necessary, they meant by all the means. Let it not take more suffering of Black Southerners for us to get our act together and stop the worst case scenarios from happening. If you're confused about what the calls to action are, let me remind you. So far, we've heard that we need to make sure that as many of us as possible mobilize to Alabama this weekend, this Saturday. You can find out more information about where actions already are in across the country on allroadsleadtothesouth.com. You can find out how to get a ride to Alabama if that is the thing that's keeping you from being able to join us in Montgomery and marching from Selma to Montgomery. And again, if you can't make it to Alabama, you want to do something closer to a neighborhood, a holler, or a hood near you, you can be sure to go to this website and sign up to host an event. Also, my friends, we all absolutely intend to be getting in some good trouble in the memory and the legacy of the beloved John Lewis. So we're going to keep reminding you to sign up for the weekend of action that we're going to be doing to make good trouble with the TJC fam. To move on into our next block of speakers, I have the honor of speaking of the TJC fam, bringing up Daryl Jones, who you all know. Show some love in the chat. Brother Daryl, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you so much, Ryan and Alana, for laying that out. I mean, it was just powerful, powerful, powerful information that we need to hear and really realize and appreciate. What that reminds me of is an inside-out strategy, which is what needs to be implemented at this point in time. The inside-out strategy is that inside the courtroom, there's fighting that's going on by our attorneys that are in there litigating. The outside strategy is outside the courtroom, there's got to be action. That's where Good Trouble Lives On 2026 weekend comes in. This year's theme is Teach, Reach, Preach. It's a call to demand hands off our vote in the face of the threats to our vote. I tell you, I'm a big Pit Bull fan, and Pit Bull always talks about fear, right? Fear. That's where we are right now. We can face everything and run, or we can face everything and rise. That's what this weekend is about. The weekend will serve as a kickoff for voter engagement, community education, and activations to remind our friends, our families, our neighbors that we still have the power and the freedom to vote, and we will exercise it. It was, the phrase good trouble was coined by the late congressman and civil rights icon, Congressman John Lewis. And, it's to signify the act of coming together to take peaceful, nonviolent action to challenge injustice. That's what this is about. The power of collective direct action resulted in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And today, that same collective action can protect voting rights from challenges posed to us today. We are intent, we are purposefully going to take steps to make it happen. It's our responsibility to ensure our communities feel the urgency to exercise our power and make our voices heard. We hope you can join us. We're going to hear from our partners in a moment on how you can engage in this weekend of action and activity. But first and foremost, we're asking you to host an event. Go to goodtroubleliveson.org. Goodtroubleliveson.org. Good Trouble did not stop with the death of John Lewis on July the 17th, 6 years ago. The spirit of that fight of good trouble lives on today. It's going to be in the streets and everywhere for that weekend of July 17th through the 19th. It's going to be in Montgomery this weekend with Black Voters Matters and everyone else that's going to be down there protesting, activating, talking about protecting our right. We will also provide training. We're not going to just put you out there. We're going to provide training. So you'll have training to answer questions and to address any issues that you may have as you're volunteering to host your Good Trouble activation July 17th through the 19th. It's my pleasure to bring up to talk about some more of our teach, preach, and teach, reach, and preach weekend of activation from the preach side of it, because the reach side of it, we're in a little competition. So the preach side of it, I want to bring up Minister Watkins. Minister Watkins, come on, tell us about preaching and good trouble and these good trouble services.
Yes, indeed. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. That's not just a prophet. That's just not Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah's exhortation or Jesus's mission statement. It's a pastoral and public mandate, especially for what has been deemed the most segregated hours of the week. Y'all, grace and peace to you all. I'm Minister Christian S. Watkins, lobbyist for Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice and Minister of Social Justice at Asbury United Methodist Church here in Washington, D.C. In our country, where too many people are being told that their voices don't matter, where our needs are too expensive, where our communities are deemed disposable, where our votes are negotiable, it is important for such a time as this for our spiritual leaders to preach good news through word and deed. Like the prophet Isaiah said, for Zion's sake, we must not keep silent. As chair of the Preach for this Good Trouble movement, our task is clear. We'll be organizing and equipping clergy and faith leaders across traditions to preach about the sacred task of voting and moral reasoning for why we must exercise our freedom to vote, and to be directly engaged in voting rights advocacy. Congregations and communities of good conscience must continue the legacy, continue to live into the legacy, participating in this good trouble, not as partisan performance, but as covenant responsibility. We do this because democracy is not separate from discipleship. Justice is not separate from worship, and civic engagement is not separate from faithfulness. We will preach. We will do that because the good news must be more than just comfort. The good news must invoke courageous action. Good news must become participation that looks like registration, education, mobilization, and public witness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not abstract ideals, beloved. They show up in whether people can afford food, housing, health care, and child care. They show up when our elders can live with dignity. They show up whenever families can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Whether children can learn in safe schools. Whether immigrants, returning citizens, and people with disabilities and low-income communities are treated as beloved neighbors, but not as political targets. The very communities that are facing voting rights attacks today are the very same ones that are being robbed of services to live in dignity and thrive. When voting rights are attacked, it is not only democracy that suffers. The poor suffer, the sick suffer, the stranger suffers, all of creation suffers. And this is why we must preach. We must preach good news that tells the truth. We must preach that the ballot is not our savior, but it is one of the God-given tools that we have to protect the vulnerable, to restrain injustice, and to build a beloved community. We must preach that faith without works is dead. And in this season, one of those works is checking our voter registration and helping our neighbors to show up and vote too. This is the practical application of our faith, beloved. It is not partisan to say that people made in the image of God deserve a voice. It's not partisan to say we the people must include all people. Our goal is to preach. Is to move clergy from concern to coordinated action. We want faith communities across the country to dedicate time in worship to the sacred responsibility of voting. We will develop and coordinate resources across denominations and faith traditions for sermons, for prayers, for bulletin inserts, for voter registration drives, for teach-ins, and much more. We want congregations to be centers of moral clarity and civic courage, leaving their sacred spaces not only inspired, but equipped. And we're not stopping in the sanctuary. We're organizing toward a visible public witness in Washington, D.C., and in state houses across our great nation. We want lawmakers to hear directly from faith leaders that protecting voting rights is sacred and necessary. We want to bring the sanctuary to the steps of power and remind those who govern that budgets are moral documents, and democracy must serve the dignity of all creation. So John Lewis taught us that good trouble is organized love in motion. And when we organize with love at the center, change does happen. History proves that. And so as good trouble does live on, join us in this sacred moment and of teaching and reaching and preaching on July 17th through 19th and beyond. We will teach the truth about what's happening. We will reach our neighbors with registration, education, and care. And we will preach with courage and Holy Ghost conviction because the Spirit of the Lord is upon us all. Now let the church say amen, and may it be so.
All right. I think I'm supposed to say amen on that one, Minister Watkins. And I tell you, folks, he laid it out, I think, as clearly as we could with regards to the preach side of it and what we want to see happen. And I'm going to just raise it up one more bar for folks that want to be part of that preaching world. We want to be certain that the members of the religious faiths that enter into this, whatever your religious faith is, it's open because we need you. But what we want to be certain is that wherever your institution of religion is, wherever it is, whatever it is, that you have 100% voter registration in your congregation, from your congregation, and then go outside the walls and continue and continue and continue to register people to vote. Because what this Teach, Reach, Preach weekend is all about, the undergirding of all of it is voter registration, voter education, and being certain that people are checking on their voting status. I tell you, can't talk about teaching enough without bringing up and talking about the teaching aspect of what we have going on for this Teach, Preach, and weekend. This Teach, Preach, Reach weekend. And the teaching side of it, man, this is a good brother, very good brother who just really will knock it out of the park. We've gotten to know each other, and there's a little competition between the two. It's friendly competition. I'm going to win, but it's friendly competition. It's my pleasure to bring up Lemaire Bryan with Common Cause. Lemaire.
Yes, thank you so much, Daryl. It is a pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you so much, and hey, everybody, for being in community. My name is Lamar Bryan. I'm the Senior Organizer Manager of Youth for Common Cause, where we are working to protect voting rights, hold government accountable, and strengthen democracy. And I know, Daryl, you said there's some competition, but you let the preach people go first. But I'll say it's all good because it's time to preach and teach. So I made my own acronym as an organizer. I am creative and innovative, so I decided to make my own acronym to give it more flavor, Daryl. And I might have won on this one. So I say think about this: teach, empower, activate, connect, and heal. T is for teach. Share knowledge, history, and truth so communities understand their rights and their power. E is empower. Equip people with the tools, confidence, and information they need to participate fully in democracy. A is activate. Turn awareness into action through organizing, voting, advocacy, and community engagement. C is connect. Build relationships across neighborhoods, generations, faith spaces, classrooms, and movements so nobody is left behind. And H is heal, because we know that we want to center joy, but we also want to honor our collective struggles and create spaces for reflection, unity, hope, and community care while continuing the fight for justice. And what the Teach pillar will be doing, we'll be teaching on fighting for civil rights and importance of making our voices heard. When we think about this Teach pillar, Congress John Lewis teaches us that good trouble starts with ordinary people. So we don't have to have all of these titles. We don't have to have all of these letters behind our name to simply show up for one another. If you know something, teach your neighbor. It does no good, and we don't get any brownie points for keeping information to ourselves. If you understand the process, help somebody else understand it too. Because again, the movement work is community work, and it does no good if you leave it and keep it to yourself. Let's be honest. We know that people are overwhelmed right now. Folks are hearing about voting changes, new requirements, court decisions, and attacks on civic participation. And let me add, gas is higher probably than it's ever been. And so we understand that there are so many changes, and a lot of people are sitting here wondering, what does it actually mean for me, for my family, for community, for my children and their children? The question remains, what does it mean for me? And as I mentioned before, Congressman John Lewis talks about it not just being about the famous folks or those that have the money to buy what they want. It's about those people who have real needs. And the beautiful thing is that everybody can participate. We are not on this call telling you not to do this or that. We're telling you to do something. Maybe your teach looks like hosting a town hall. Maybe your teach might be hosting a teach-in or a Know Your Rights training. Maybe your teach might be going to your favorite church or a church down the street you have not been a part of yet. Being in your classroom, your radio station, your social media platform. While we're learning line dances, we can be learning our rights to vote. Maybe, it's organizing in community that looks like organizing in North Carolina, where I am right now in the beautiful city of Durham, Selma, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. But I'm encouraging you to activate and organize all across this country. Maybe that may be a candlelight visual honoring John Lewis, while we're bringing people together to really educate them and activate them. There's no one way to teach, and the point of it is to really pass knowledge. And I'll close with this. Because when informed communities are educated, they are stronger. Prepared communities are harder to silence. And when people understand their rights, they are empowered to participate fully in our democracy. So let's start teaching people, because knowledge is power. And as I was taught when I was younger, and my siblings were taught, when we have power, and can't nobody take it away from us. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Lamar. We're
Thank
gonna
you so much,
keep
Lamar.
on
Thank you so much.
pushing. Thank you so much, Daryl. Thank you, Christian. We're gonna toss it directly to our next speaker, the beloved sister Jaleesa from the Declaration for American Democracy Coalition. Jaleesa, I'll toss it to you next.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. I'm Jaleesa Giles, campaign coordinator at Declaration for American Democracy Coalition, and I am here to bring you the good news of how to sign up to host a Good Trouble Lives On Weekend of Action event. So if you go to goodtroubleliveson.org, you will see at the top, you can click on host an event. Then it'll take you to Mobilize, where you can insert all the information that's needed to create your events. Now, we are asking for you to do any event that you would like to do on the days. We are asking for you to do one event, maybe on Saturday on the Reach Day, or you can do an event every day for their weekend. We want you to do all of the things that you are capable and able to do, and we're going to give you the support to do so. We will not leave you hanging. Next up, we're going to have our training that's going to be on next week, May 27th at 7 p.m. For this first training in our series of trainings for you, we will give you information on how to host an event, what these events should look like, key things to talk about as you organize, from connecting with local faith organizations and groups to understanding your state's election and voter registration laws. So whether this is your first event, first time doing something, or if you're a seasoned organizing or organizer, this training will help you get started and make sure you have an impactful event. So please sign up to host an event. And then sign up to come to our first training, where we'll give you more information. This training is May 21st at 7 p.m. And there should be some links that's dropping in the chat for you to sign up. And I'll throw it back over to you, Ashley.
Lisa, thanks you for making sure that we actually know how the tech works so we can do this good troublemaking work. We appreciate you. Y'all, our finale, the grand finale, is someone who you know well. And so I'm so excited to toss it to my friend, my sister, my colleague, Leah Greenberg from Indivisible. Indivisible, y'all been in the chat all night. I need to see them hearts. I need to see the likes. I need y'all to show up and show out for your fearless leader. I need to see you dropping which individual chapter you represent. Leah, I will kick it to you.
Thank you, Ash. It is such an honor to be here tonight with such an incredible group of leaders and visionaries. I'm here to talk about how we're collectively throwing in as No Kings, as Indivisible. If No Kings and what we've organized around over the last couple of years is about anything, it is about standing up for each other and standing up for our rights in the face of bigoted and anti-democratic governance. And there is no more fundamental right than the right to vote. Every issue we care about, every path to a more just and inclusive America, it depends first and foremost on the right to vote. And Calais is the final step in a multi-decade campaign to eviscerate that fundamental right, to eviscerate the Voting Rights Act in service of a white and wealthy few, to re-enshrine white supremacy, to destroy Black political power and representation. That is what they're trying to do, but we're not having it. And so as National Partners for No Kings, we are here to answer the call and the leadership of the champions on this call tonight and across the South to stand in fierce solidarity with Black communities under attack and to throw in together. We know this is a crucial moment for white people, for non-Black people to show up for Black communities as they have shown up for and led on every struggle for justice in America in history. So we're going to be on the ground in Montgomery this weekend, and we will be carrying the fight forward all summer with Good Trouble Lives On and beyond. We won't go back. We won't be silenced. We will fight every step of the way for the most fundamental right that makes this country a democracy, the right that brave organizers crossed the bridge in Selma 61 years ago to win. This time, the time to show up and make our voices heard is now. This weekend, it is over. Good Trouble lives on. It is every day going forward, and we will win.
Leah, we love you. Indivisible, we see you. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for us to show, not tell, that none of us are free until all of us are free. Now is the time. I saw the chat going back and forth about what does it mean to be faithful towards justice and liberation and democracy for everybody. Well, you might not agree with everything that's been said tonight. Maybe you're a person who only believes that ain't no power like the power of the people because the power of people don't stop. Or maybe you're a person that believes that we will win in a time where it feels impossible to win. And I want to tell you that there is space in this space for all of that. And I can't wait to see us make it manifest again this weekend on Saturday in Montgomery, all across this country. I can't wait to see you all go to allroadsleadtothe south.org and make sure that you've signed up for an event near you. If you can't make it, don't fret. This is not just a moment, this is a movement. And we have already told you that on July 17th, we're going to be throwing down on the Good Trouble Lives On weekend of action. So you can show up and show out by hosting an event, by going to goodtroubleliveson.org, by signing up for an event or hosting an event. And if you don't know what you might do to host one successfully, you actually can come to the training. We wouldn't tell you to do something that we wouldn't walk you through. So I want you to sign up to join the first training to learn how you can participate in making good trouble next Thursday. Go to goodtroubleliveson.org to sign up. Beloveds, if ever there was a time to start doing some doing and not just thinking about it. I love that y'all come to these mass calls, but the mass calls alone are not the end of our work. We have to do the work in the community. We have to show up. We have to organize. We have to mobilize. So I'm going to say what we going to do to make the people rise. And in the chat, I want you to say educate, agitate, organize. You got it? I'm going to say what we going to do to make the people rise. You're going to say educate, agitate, organize. If you didn't get anything else that we talked about on this call, we're going to make sure you get these links. We're going to make sure you get the recordings. But if you miss all of that, the thing I need you to know to do is educate, agitate, organize. So again, what are you going to do to make the people rise? You're going to educate, you're going to agitate, you're going to organize. I can't wait to see the success of that liberatory work. I love you, I respect you, and I want you to be free. We'll see you Saturday.